Shabbat Shalom. It's Friday, October 16th. Hello, Ephraim Wenger.
Hello, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we're post holidays here, so
Yeah,
getting back to the normal day-to-day life.
tough 3 weeks of just happiness and joy and holiness. Now I got to go back to the
Yeah,
regular work week. That was a tough transition.
feel ya. Yeah,
But
but it's
a
it's
new
part of the
chapter.
chapter two. Yeah,
Chapter two.
chapter two. We have what is it? 6 chapters in total, or 8 chapters in total?
Some versions have more than six, but ours has six.
6, right? So we are, what is it? A quarter,
I
third,
think. Oh no, I have to do math on Friday. Yeah.
third.
All right, so we're going to get into a lot of sounds today and different sounds that the letters make. And so, do you want to start with the Hebrew?
Yeah, let's dive straight into it. Okay, Perik Bet Mishnah Aleph. So it's 2-1.
2-1.
22 אותיות יסוד, 3 אמות ו7 כפולות ו12 פשוטות. 3 אמות אמש,
Mm-hmm.
יסודן כף זכות וכף חובה, לשון חוק מכריע בינתיים. 3 אמות אמש, מ' דוממת, ש' שורקת, א' אוויר רוח מכריע ביניהם.
Yeah. The 22 foundation letters, we've gone over this, the foundation letters.
Yeah.
3 mothers, 7 doubles, 12 elementals. The 3 mothers are Aleph, Mem, Shin, Amesh, or Amash. Their foundation is a pan of merit, a pan of liability, and the tongue of decree deciding between them. 3 mothers, Aleph, Mem, Shin. Mem, the letter Mem, it hums. The Shin, it hisses. And the Aleph is a breath of air, like Aleph. It's deciding between them.
So he translates sheen as kisses, is that what you said?
Hisses.
Hisses, okay.
Sheen, yeah, like a snake.
Shoreket, right. In Hebrew, I translate that into shrika, whistle.
Whistle, okay, I like whistle too. I like whistle.
But when you think about it, when you whistle, it's actually with your lips, so it's not with the sheen.
No, yeah.
Like when you say whistle in Hebrew, I say shorek. I use my teeth, right?
Okay, very good. So this is heavy duty stuff. Mostly we're talking about. By the way, I don't claim to understand what Hachma or being or consciousness is, but we're going to be talking about it and the shift between consciousness. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so it seems like it's breaking down another element or way of behavior of the 3 foundational letters, the emesh, aleph, mem, and shin, the avir, mayim, water, and fire.
Yeah.
And there's also a bit of I don't know if you have it in your book, but he brings in Rabbi Kaplan right here, kind of like maznaim. Is that what do you call it in English? What do you call that thing? A scale?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like a scale where he kind of describing, the force of these 3 foundations, the water, the fire, and the wind, as a balance between the fire, like Aleph, Avir, Ruach seem to be like the balance between the right and the left. The right side of the Sfirot, which starts from Chokhmah, on the top, Chokhmah consciousness, and the left side of the Sfirot, start with the Binah consciousness. And the Aleph is in between. And he goes into Sefer Yetzirah, compares that, or parallels that to Kaf Zchut and Kaf Chova. So we know the idea in Judaism of Kaf Zchut. We need to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, which is Zchut. And then there's also a concept of Chova. And Sefer Yetzirah kind of parallels it with the right is Zchut and the left is Chova.
So let's go slower for people listening. So Zechut means merit. So you have your merits on one side. A lot of times when we think about Yom Kippur, we come before Hashem with merits, and then Chovah.
Right.
Are you translating Chovah?
Chovah kind of, does he translate that there? I mean, he probably...
For Chovah.
It's, when he first writes the Mishnah here, 2-1, there should be a few letters before the end, a few words before the end.
Oh, okay. No, I don't see it for Chovah. I see Ruach Makriya Beneteim. Is it before that?
Ruach Machriya Beneim. Just before that. Kaf Zchut, Kaf Chova. Lashon Chok, Machriya Beneim.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to translate that.
Tongue of decree,
Um,
deciding between them. Merit and liability. I'm sorry, that one. He
okay,
says
liability.
liability. Sorry, liability.
So liability is associated right with the Sfira of Bina consciousness.
Yeah.
And it seemed like the balance between them is is the Aleph, is the wind. And you could also see it in the diagram, in the Sfirot themselves, the Aleph, I think, is in the center over there. And then it goes into like kind of like the ending piece where it describes the sound or the melody of these letters, of these elements, the mem and the shin, the water and the fire. So the mem sound, as we said, is mem domemet. It's a sound of, in a sense, is a sound of silence.
Sound of
And
silence.
that's parallel with chokhmah. And then it says what's shin shoreket. It's the sounds of, what's the word used for shorek? Humming? Hissing.
Yeah, humming was that mem. Sometimes in religions where they hum, they say om.
Right.
Or in the Buddhist meditation.
Right. So it's like a humming. It's like an internal type of sound that comes from the stomach, right? From within. The hum. La briut. And
love that mute button.
Yeah. Right. So humming or silence, that's what I'm understanding. So chokhmah the sound of chokhmah and its essence and its source seems to start with a hum.
A vibration, yeah.
A vibration. And the sound of binah seems to start with a shrika, with a shorek, with a whistle, or what's the word you used?
Hiss.
A hiss. Right.
I think the way Rabbi Kaplan talks about it is that they really are opposites. A mem that kind of just,
right.
You're a drone string, it's very calming. Hiss sounds like you've done something wrong, and what are you doing? And he says that I think that the aleph is the tongue of decree. And I like that because I really love studying the laws of Lashon Hara, of, proper speech, because, we talk so much about, people say how much they love music. Oh, I love music. But no one, I don't really hear people say, I love speech. I just love speech. And speech and music are so similar. And we always talk about really refining music so it's beautiful, but we really, really could always work on refining our speech and seeing the parallels there, that our speech is a kind of music. And it can either be a drone sound that really makes you feel comfortable and you say positive words, or it could be a hissing sound where it causes comfort. Yeah.
There's a nice Rabbi Nachman piece where he describes, he says, kol chokhmah v'chokhmah ba'olam yesh la zemer v'nigun miyuchad. Like every wisdom, chokhmah, right, the sfira chokhmah in the world has its own unique melody, right, its own unique sound. And I think what he's trying to say by that is that, and then he continues like with that piece, and he says, and from that sound, the chokhmah is expressed, the wisdom is expressed. In other words, the most beginning point of the chokhmah, of the wisdom, it's this very specific sound. The sound comes before the expression of the wisdom, basically.
Wow, that's neat.
So, I think in matter of the relationship between chokhmah and binah, so if binah is the expression of the sound, then chokhmah is the beginning point of the sound. So it's the hum, right? It's the hum, and then binah is the speech, right? It's expressing it in actual words.
I think you could say that too with music, that the first is the note, but bina is the pitch, or in the rhythmic. But you could have just that's the first idea, like you're saying, is the hachma. But the more you tighten it, you can get it higher. The more you stretch it out and get it lower, and that could be where you build the bina.
Yeah, maybe also music you could parallel it to, like, maybe in the most simple form of creating a song is like you have the chords or whatever it is, right? The letters. And then you have the words that you're putting the song together that creates the melody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The melody and
that too. So it's an interesting concept. I mean, first of all, the idea of Rabbi Nachman is in itself very special. Kind of like being able to recognize that every wisdom in the world has its unique melody. Like that in itself is, I find to be beautiful. And then kind of saying that before that wisdom, there's like a sound to it. There's an internal sound to every wisdom, internal melody.
I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of cultures have their own unique music,
Right.
um, so that all the members of the group seems to like that music. I mean, generally, and uh, and then even Hasidic groups like Rabbi Nachman has very unique music. That's very much. I can hear that it's a Breslov
Right,
melody.
exactly. And you could tell the type of by listening to the type of music, you could also tell what's the type of wisdom they're
Mhm.
living, right?
Yeah,
You
there's
could
some
get a
Breslov.
sense. You could get a sense of it, right?
Yeah,
Like
some
exactly what you
Breslov.
described, like Breslev Nigunim, you start to get a sense of their philosophy. You start to
Yeah,
get a sense of their ideas, and
some
so
are
on with
so
different cultures.
introspective, some are so happy. You can really hear their outlook, just like you're saying.
Exactly. So maybe that's what I think Sefer Yetzirah is trying to say here. Maybe it's like
I
there's the sound and there's the wisdom, and they both come together. But it also goes into here the idea of if we said like there's the kol himhum, which is the hum sound of chokhmah, and then there's the whistle sound of shin. So I think kind of like the melody in between it when you move between the two consciousness of chokhmah and binah, it then creates the melody of the humming and the whistling
yeah,
together.
that's very good. In fact, I think Rabbi Kaplan goes one step past what we're saying now in the next part, where he's talking about what goes before Chachma consciousness. I always find this verse really interesting. It's in Malachim and Kings, with Eliyahu hears the small, still voice.
Mm,
You
right.
know,
Kol
and
himhum dak. Right.
right. I always find that really interesting because I think that happens in music. When you play really good music, you kind of hear it right before you play it. You kind of get a creative sense of what it is.
Mm,
I wouldn't say you actually. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know if I really hear it in my head exactly before I play, but kind of there's 1 second before,
mm,
and that small still voice. There's a really good, beautiful Gemara where they're saying, "Is the king here?" I don't know if I don't have to find where this Gemara is. Anyway, so a student's asking the rabbi, "Is the king of this country here?" So this huge parade of trumpeters goes by, and they say, "Oh, is that him?" And the rabbi says, "No, that's not him." And then these servants start marching. And he says, "Oh, I hear it. That's the king." He says, "No, that's not him." And then it gets really quiet, and the rabbi says, "Okay, the king's coming." So as an
right.
analogy of through everything, and Maimonides says this, that the real praise of Hashem is silence, which is such a contradiction. But we do say that there's a small. We don't really want to have total void with Hashem. It's not going into total silence, but there is a quietness so you can hear the small, still voice of
Mm,
maybe our own soul or maybe of Hashem.
mm. Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So that leads, I think, Rabbi Kaplan here then goes on to like the idea of chashmal,
Yes, I really like that. Yeah,
right? So chashmal is definitely a very it's a concept that is written everywhere in Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, and I think it's sourced in Yechezkel and the Yechezkel vision, where he says, when he describes the vision that he's seeing, he says, "Kein chashmal mitoch ha'esh," like he sees, this thing is what he calls chashmal from within the fire. And Rabbi Kaplan, he notes here that chashmal is broken into two words, chash and mal. While chash means quiet,
Yes.
silence, and mal means speech. Dibur comes from the word milmul, right? To mumble, to speak.
Yeah.
In other words, like
Yeah.
this movement between the two consciousness of silent chokhmah and speaking binah is called chashmal. It's called um,
Speaking
it's called electricity. I mean, I guess.
modern way is electricity, and I guess then it was the speaking silence. I kind of think that they were aware of many meditation systems that the goal was silence itself, and so the Hebrews teaching us that you were looking for silence only as a stepping stone to get to the voice of Hashem, not for silence itself. That's what I understand from Hashmal, the speaking silence.
Right. Yeah. So that's makes a
Maybe
lot of sense. So it's like chashmal seems to be like a description of experiencing silent and speech at the same time.
Yeah, very well said. It reminds me of
Somewhere
a
along
quote
those lines.
I never knew that Abulafia says you need Sefer Yetzirah and More Nevuchim together. And
Right.
I'm reading a great book, and I'll have to send you the title from Moshe Halbertal. I believe he's an NYU professor, but and I think I brought it up before, but he really goes through how clearly Maimonides wanted to help us break down language to get to
Mm,
Hashem.
mm,
But one of the problems with Moed Nevuchim is it feels like Hashem just becomes a force, because you can't say anything about Hashem in Maimonides'
mm.
system. But I think
Right.
where Abulafi is saying Sefer Yetzirah helps you know that there is a personal God beyond the language,
Which you could also experience.
which you could
Right.
experience to quote unquote speaks to you. I mean, I've never heard a voice of God, but I mean,
Right.
I think voice there means there's a relationship.
Exactly. Relationship. That's the right word.
Yeah.
And that's maybe like the missing point of Moreh Nevuchim, right?
I
Where he
think I
like,
really do. I think that's the way to
he
say it.
describes things on the rational level and on the very philosophical level. But that's
Well,
where it stays, right?
I don't
And
think it's too harsh to say that. I think it's a good critique of Rambam, although I think he probably had to do it, but I think it's a good critique of
right, like
Rambam.
I'm not sure his goal was to, was to teach how to experience. His goal was to really
Yeah.
stay in that rational. And there's nothing wrong with that, at least.
I think it's that plus he just believed that if he described anything about mysticism, somebody would create a system about it and
Mm,
not let the individuals seek it themselves, which that's ultimately what mysticism is. It's leaving behind everybody else and everybody else's opinion and systems and what society says and just trying to find yourself and Hashem on your own. So I think
right,
Maimonides took the maximalist position, which is I'm not going to even describe one thing about the mystical realm.
right,
But you might come to think that he believes in the God of Aristotle, which is this sort of force it being. And it's just a good critique of him because it gets a little too close to the God of the philosophers rather than the God of the Torah.
right. Very well said. Yeah, very well said. Yeah. Should we move on to the next piece here? Next, it's a
Yeah,
short one,
it's a short one.
2-2, very short.
We're going to be using the same verbs we've used a lot.
Yeah. So 22 אותיות יסוד, חקיקן, חצבן, צרפן, שקלן ועמידן, וצר בהם את כל היצור ואת כל העתיד ליצור. Wow.
Yeah, so 22 foundation letters. Okay, so here's those same verbs. He engraved them, he carved them, he permutated them, he weighed them and transformed them. And with them, he depicted all that was formed and all that would be formed.
Mm,
I love this. So this would be some of my favorite stuff because it really emphasizes for us visualization, picturing things, visualizing the letters, really engraving them on our minds, and then the permutation that the world's in flux, we're in flux, everything's changing, and you have to move with it and grow with it. And there's nothing that's solid. You can't rely on dogma and say like, well, I believe this. I was going to tell you that's what I feel about the Eitz Hadas, is that it's a teaching that humans want to have knowledge and be right about the way we look at things rather than have a relationship with other people or with Hashem. So that's why when Adam Arishon ate the Eitz Hadas and tried to internalize and own knowledge, I want knowledge. I don't want to always be looking at it as something that I need to explore, but I just want to hold on to it like it's my knowledge. I'm right. And then that's when Hashem said, hey, where did you go? I was talking to you and now you're sort of off, claiming stuff and trying to be right.
right,
We used to have a dialogue. And it's just so relevant to today's world because people just want to be right and
right,
put fun at any other opinion and hold and eat knowledge rather than have a dialogue.
right. Well, that's exactly like you said. The sin of Eitz Hadas is where when you want to be right, it also also means that there's wrong, right? So like it's called Eitz Hadas tov v'ra, right? Eitz Hadas good and bad.
Okay, good point. Right, very good.
So like the moment that was eaten, right, and maybe in a metaphorical way,
Yeah.
it created a break between. It created this idea of good and bad. It broke the oneness.
Very
So like
good.
a lot of the commentaries or like Mekubalim said like if Adam Arishon would have just eaten from Etz HaChaim first,
Right.
from the tree of life, then he could have then eaten from Eitz Hadas and it'll be fine. Because he's first creating life and he's staying in the oneness and it's one forever. Like the idea of Etz HaChaim.
Oh, I love
And
that.
that won't lead to the duality of good and bad.
That's very good. That makes me think that duality of the good and bad. What did Adam Arishon do right after he ate it? He blamed somebody else, right?
Exactly.
So I'm all good. That thing over there, external to me, that's all bad. And
Exactly.
if anybody holds me accountable for my actions, oh, it wasn't me. It was something else outside of me.
Exactly. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So this piece here is, starts off as 22 אותיות יסוד, right? 22 basic letters in which, God formed the world. And how does he translate the word chakak?
Engraving.
Engrave?
Yeah, engrave. I think
engraving.
he goes on to say that there's engraving them in the mind and, filling them with your consciousness, these letters. Rabbi Kaplan likes to use the word mantra.
Yeah,
Um, I'm more apt to believe it's much more dynamic than mantra.
yeah.
I know what he's trying to say, but I think the letters and the techniques, at least what I understand from Abulafi, is it's constantly changing and moving and growing. And a mantra to me means
Right.
repetition of one idea.
Right. Well, the action of chakak, of engraving, is an interesting one, because also in the beginning of Sefer Yetzirah, it opens up, the first sentence is opened up, ב-32 נתיבות כליות חוכמה,
Yeah.
chakak Adonai tzvot, right? He engraved 32 paths of wisdom and pliot. And like the actions of engraving is a very interesting one, because let's say when you engrave something into stone, right? So the action when you're engraving, let's say your name in a stone, is you're removing piece of a stone, and by the action of removing it, you're also engraving something within it, right? And the same process also had to happen in the beginning of creation, right? So he had to remove, in other words, create space,
Yes.
right? But in the same very action of removing, he's also forming his name, forming letters. In other words, building a basis of existence.
You're
And
making a
like this,
connection between Simsum and Chakak, that Hashem did at Simsum, and that's the type of Chakak. Is that your kind of connection there?
that too, yeah, exactly. That as well. It's like creating space. But the difference between Tzimtzum and Chakak is, well, Tzimtzum is just emptying out, right? It's just contracting, it's just creating space.
Yeah.
Chakika is a dual action. In other words, while you're creating space, if you think about it metaphorically of engraving into stone, you're also creating a name in the
Yes.
very action of removing.
I think that goes back to what we were just saying about Eitz Hadas, that's the whole idea of dialogue, is you kind of remove, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. You remove that confidence that I've got everything worked out to make space to talk to the other.
Yeah, I think that connects to that as well. I think it definitely connects to that as well. But for me, like even in a meditative way,
Mm-hmm.
we could take it, the concept of chakika, which is, that's the beauty that I find to be in this word, or this action of engraving, is where it's creating space while simultaneously at exactly the same time you're engraving something, you're engraving a network,
Yeah.
or some sort of basis.
Yes.
Like even on a meditative way, like maybe the first step to the meditation experience would be to kind of, on one hand, creating space for the experience, letting go of everything, letting go of your thoughts and mind. But at the same time, while you're letting go, you're also trying to form some sort of direction and path you want to go on during the experience, right?
Yes.
So it's a dual action, which I just find to be very fascinating.
That's really well said. I know that there was a friend of mine in Richmond who talked about neuropaths, and something that, when you learn and practice something, you build new things in your mind. And he used a different word, I'll have to remember it, but some type of neuropaths or neuroflexibility that you actually build things in your mind. And I guess you kind of could say engrave, you take out old habits and put a new one in simultaneously, a lot like you're saying.
Interesting. Yeah, this is a short one. Rabbi Kaplan doesn't get too much into it.
No, I think we're going to get, on our next session, we're going to have lots of charts. We're going to get into the letters, and we're going to get into, diagrams like this. This is going to be fun. See if you can keep track of the 231 gates and the points. So we got some really in-depth things coming up in our different half squares and squares. So that's going to be really cool. I don't know if I'd say dissect it or translate exactly what's happening here with these gates and putting the letters together, but it's going to get really deep.
Yeah, we'll try to hold ourselves together.
We'll try to hold on. Strap into your seats, everybody.
Don't go crazy, Jason.
Don't go crazy. Don't make a golem. We don't need more Jasons walking around. Did I share my thought on the last session about what I thought they meant by golem? Did I share that? I think that's really
sure. That is really good. And I think on those lines, the chidush of this kind of like maybe our time and age, our approach to Sefer Yetzirah is that maybe back then they wanted to create new people like golem, but today we're trying to recreate ourselves. Create new us, right? So it's a very different approach.
Well, I think once you understand what language does to your mind and the limitation language has in terms of thinking, and if you can create your own language in a sense and your own neural pathways and your own engraving, you can find yourself not defined by external things that other people created.
Well said, yeah. I'll say
Let's
amen
do
to that.
Shabbat.
What?
Well, we'll just figure that out this Shabbat. We'll just have it done by Sunday. Have that wrapped up.
So simple, right?
So simple.
That's it. So simple. Yashar
Great learning
koach.
with you. What a book.
Yashar koach.
Yashar koach. Have a great
Very
Shabbat.
good.
Rest of the Shabbat.
Shabbat shalom, likewise. Shabbat shalom to everyone.
Yeah.
Peaceful weekend. And yeah, we're entering a long period without any holidays. So we have Shabbat every week. So that's in itself is a holiday.
Midbar. We're wandering in the midbar before Hanukkah. Where are we? What do we do? It's tough.
Yeah. Well, really, as we said, we spoke in one of the pieces, that concept of Ol Yashar and Ol Chozer, which is running light and returning light. Really, the essence of Shabbat is receiving light from Keter, receiving light from the infinite. And that's also part of the work that we're doing prior to Shabbat, like all the preparation, even the stuff that we say on Friday night, which is, we cite the Lechadodi, which is, Boyi B'Shalom, right? Bring in Shabbat in peace. It's all about receiving. It's all about bringing it in. It's a very meditative experience, the Shabbat. It's a very powerful experience.
But we're supposed to bring the light from the holidays into the world and, try to make the world better. So it's not just to have this spiritual highs. We have to apply it to the world and then come back for the recharge. So
yeah, so that exactly, you're completing the concept of Ol Chozer, returning light, where we need to reflect it back now into the world.
Yes.
That's what we need to do. It's not just to take it in and kind of go to sleep. Like keep it within us. We have to reflect it back. Like the moon. That's what we compare it to the moon.
Yeah.
In Judaism.
And we have the technology through Zoom to share Chavrusa. And by the way, not that I work for them, but Sefaria, the really cool Jewish education app, now has a Chavrusa feature. So you can do the kind of learning that we're doing with the text next to you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I think they got it from us. Yeah.
Yeah, in the future we'll have verbalize. So God willing.
Verbalize, yes. And
not there yet. But
can you spell that for everybody the way that you spell it for your website and company?
verblize.com.
Yes. And that'll
verbalize.com.
Formats and all kinds of enhanced features.
Down the line. It takes a bit longer than 7 days of creation. So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.